This does not, however, mean that Vedanta is a monopoly study of the Shankara Sampradaya. Vedanta is studied by all the bona fide Sampradaya, but they have their own interpretations. Here, Vedanta refers to Vedanta Sutra. But those in the Shankara Sampradaya are generally known to be ignorant of the knowledge of the Vedantist Vaishnavas. For this reason, the Bhakti-vaibhava title was first offered to the author by the Vaishnavas. The Lord agreed to take lessons from Bhattacharya on the Vedanta, and they sat together in the temple of Lord Jagannath. The Bhattacharya went on speaking continually for 7 days, and the Lord heard him with all attention and did not interrupt. The Lord's silence raised some doubts in Bhattacharya's heart. And he asked the Lord how it was that he did not ask anything or comment on his explanations of Vedanta. The Lord posed himself before the Bhattacharya as a foolish student and pretended that he heard the Vedanta from him because the Bhattacharya felt that this was the duty of a sannyasi. But the Lord did not agree with his lectures. By this, the Lord indicated that the so-called sannyasis, so-called Vedantists amongst the Shankara Sampradaya or any other Sampradaya who do not follow the instructions of Srila Vyasadeva or mechanical students of the Vedanta. They are not fully aware of that great knowledge. The explanation of the Vedanta Sutra is given by the author himself in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. One who has no knowledge of the Bhagavatam will hardly be able to know what the Vedanta says. The Bhattacharya, being a vastly learned man, could follow the Lord's sarcastic remarks on the popular Vedantist. He therefore asked him why he did not ask about any point which he could not follow. The Bhattacharya could understand the purpose of his dead silence for the days he heard him. This showed clearly that the Lord had something else in mind. Thus, the Bhattacharya requested him to disclose his mind. Upon this, the Lord spoke as follows. My dear sir, I can understand the meaning of the sutras like Janmadhyasya Yataha, Shastra Yonitvat, and Athato Brahma Jigyasa of the Vedanta Sutra. But when you explain them in your own way, it becomes difficult for me to follow them. The purpose of the sutras is here Janmadhyasya Yataha means from whom the creation and so on of this world comes about. Shastrayonitvat, because Shastra is a source of knowledge about him. Athata Brahma Jigyasa is the first one. Then, therefore, there should be the desire to know, understand, and realize Brahman. The purpose of the sutras is already explained in them, but your explanations are covering them with something else. You do not purposely take the direct meaning of the sutras, but indirectly give your own interpretation. So this is a starting point, that whatever Vedic scripture you are studying, it should be as it is. Allow the text to speak whatever it is. It's a matter of common knowledge that amongst the scholars of the Vedanta Sutra that when you go through the sutras are very clearly dualistic. The sutras are very clear that there is a distinction between the living entity and the Supreme Brahman. This is very well known. It's just that the Shankara group, they come in and say, but the Upanishads say that they are all one. Upanishads say that they are all one. And because Upanishads say that they are all one, therefore the Vedanta Sutras should be reinterpreted in terms of the Upanishads. Actually, it's the other way around. The Upanishads should be understood through the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra should not be understood through the Upanishads. The Lord thus attacked all Vedantists who interpret the Vedanta Sutra fashionably, according to their limited power of thinking, to serve their own purpose. Such indirect interpretations of the authentic literatures, like the Vedanta Sutra, are hereby condemned by the Lord. The Lord continued, Vyasadeva has summarized the direct meanings of the mantras in the Upanishads in the Vedanta Sutra. Unfortunately, you do not take their direct meaning. You indirectly interpret them in a different way. The authority of the Vedas is unchallengeable and stands without any question of doubt. And whatever is stated in the Vedas must be accepted completely. Otherwise, one challenges the authority of the Vedas. The conch shell and cow dung are bone and stool of two living beings. But because they have been recommended by the Vedas as pure, people accept them as such because of the authority of the Vedas. The idea is that one cannot set this imperfect reason above the authority of the Vedas. The orders of the Vedas must be obeyed as they stand without any mundane reasoning. The so-called followers of the Vedic injunctions make their own interpretations of the Vedic injunctions, and thus they establish different parties and sects of the Vedic religion. Lord Buddha directly denied the authority of the Vedas, and he established his own religion. Only for this reason, the Buddhist religion was not accepted by the strict followers of the Vedas. But those who are so-called followers of the Vedas are more harmful than the Buddhists. The Buddhists have the courage to deny the Vedas directly, but the so-called followers of the Vedas have no courage to deny the Vedas, although indirectly they disobey all the injunctions of the Vedas. Lord Chaitanya condemned this. The examples given by the Lord of the conch shell and the cow dung are very much appropriate in this connection. If one argues that since cow dung is pure, the stool of a learned Brahmana is still more pure, his argument will not be accepted. Cow dung is accepted, and the stool of a highly posted Brahmana is rejected. See, if you take the example of conch shell, or let me take for simplicity cow dung. There is one scriptural injunction that says that the stool of a cow is pure. There is another injunction which says the stool of an animal is impure. Now, how both of them can be true? So, the Vedic method of communication is generally utsarga apavada. Certain statements are presented as general statements, and certain other statements are understood as exceptions to those statements. So the general rule or the general observation is that the stool of an animal is impure. The exception to that is that the stool of a cow is pure. So both of them are true. One is understood as utsarga, general statement. Another is understood as an exception. This method of communication is all pervasive. If you don't understand this, you cannot follow even Vyakarana, Sanskrit grammar. So this is very well known. So when the Vedic scriptures say that the Supreme Being does not have any qualities in one place, and another place it says that the Supreme Being has spiritual qualities, then one statement is understood as a general statement, the other statement is understood as an exception to that general statement. So both of them are true. The Mayavadis, what they do is, they say the first statement, the Supreme Being has no qualities, they say this is the real truth. And they say the second statement, the Supreme Being has spiritual qualities, this is not the real truth. They invoke another logic called Arundhati Pradarshana Nyaya. if there's one star known as Arundhati, but it is not a strong star. I mean, its illumination is not strong. Its illumination is weak. So when at night, if you want to point out to the location of Arundhati, then you first point out to some stars nearby Arundhati, whose illumination is very strong. You say, that is Arundhati. But then, so now you have directed the attention of the person to a particular area in the night sky. And then the person says, yes, I see there are a number of bright stars there. And then you say, no, but actually that is not the one. See, there's one dull star nearby there. That is the real Arundhati. So the Shankara group, they come and say that when the Vedic scriptures say that, see, the Supreme Being is Narayan, he has these transcendental features and so on. That is like pointing out to these stars with bright illumination, saying this is Arundhati. And then once your gaze is moved to that direction, then they say, no, but the real Arundhati is the one that's next to it. It is very weak. So then they say, the scriptures then say, no, but the real Supreme Brahman is impersonal. Now, why should we accept this logic of Utsarga Pavada rather than Arundhati Pradarshana? Because there is no other way to understand how the Vedanta Sutra statements are correct. The statements of the Vedanta Sutra is practical. Vedanta Sutra is actually number 2, next to Srimad Bhagavatam. Within Prasthanatrayi, within the 3 foundations of Vedanta philosophy. That means the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is the topmost. So every word in it has to be taken very seriously. In Vedanta Sutras, you will not be able to apply Arundhati Pradarshana Nyaya by saying, no, this is wrong. Because it is the highest scripture. Why in the highest scripture would that be said? It might be said in lower scripture. So that Arundhati Pradarshana Nyaya, that's a misapplication of Arundhati Pradarshana Nyaya here. Rather, you should understand it in terms of Utsarga Pavada, general statements and exceptions. The Vedic injunctions are self-authorized, and if some mundane creature adjusts the interpretations of the Vedas, it defies their authority. It is foolish to think of oneself as more intelligent than Srila Vyasadeva. If actually the Supreme Brahman were to be impersonal, then Srila Vyasadeva would not have worded the sutras in this manner. Atha, Ataha, Brahma Jigyasa. Then, therefore, there should be the desire to know, understand, and realize the Supreme Brahman. This is the first sutra. The next sutra defines that very Brahman. That very Brahman that one should inquire about, that very Brahman that one should desire to know, understand, and realize, that is defined. And how is that Brahman defined? Is it defined in some impersonal term? No, it is defined as Janmadhyasya Yataha. Personal. Only a person can be Janmadhyasya Yataha. Similarly, throughout the Vedanta Sutra, if you go, ultimately also one attains liberation. Even there, Vyasadeva, he says, Jagat Vyaparavarjam. He says that one attains liberation, but he does not have the power to deal with the material world through creation, maintenance, destruction, and so on. So you cannot, even in the highest state of liberation, you cannot become Janmadhyasya Yataha. So again, it's dualism. That's a distinction between the living entity and the Supreme Being. If you look at the sutras themselves, you cannot bring in Advaita, Kevala Advaita philosophy. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya makes this point. It is foolish to think of oneself as more intelligent than Shilabhyasika. He has already expressed himself in his sutras, and there is no need of help from personalities of lesser importance. His work, the Vedanta Sutra, is as dazzling as the midday sun. And when someone tries to give his own interpretations on the self-effulgent sun like Vedanta Sutra, he attempts to cover the sun with the cloud of his imagination. The Vedas and Puranas are one and the same in purpose. They ascertain the absolute truth, which is greater than everything else. The absolute truth is ultimately realized as the absolute personality of Godhead, with the absolute controlling power. As such, the absolute personality of Godhead must be completely full of opulence, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Yet the transcendental personality of Godhead is astonishingly ascertained as impersonal by Shankara's followers. The impersonal description of the absolute truth in the Vedas is given to nullify the mundane conception of the absolute whole. He is not this, he is not that. He is not tiny. No. He is not big. You'll find many statements like this. This simply means that he is not any of this as experienced by you. Personal features of the Lord are completely different from all kinds of mundane features. The living entities are all individual persons, and they are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Whole. If the parts and parcels are individual persons, the source of their emanation must not be impersonal. He is the Supreme Person amongst all the relative persons. The Vedas inform us that from him, Brahman, everything emanates, and on him, everything rests, and after annihilation, everything merges in him only. Therefore, he is the ultimate dative, causative, and accommodating cause of all causes. Dative, causative, accommodating cause. These are all concepts in grammar. There are different cases in Sanskrit. You express different senses. There are 7. Strictly speaking, there are 8 cases. The first, these are all how nouns and pronouns are used in a Sanskrit sentence. For instance, okay, wait. Let me do this. I'll take one verse of Kulishekar. Okay. Mukundamala Sutra, text 43. Vishnu rakshatu no jagattre guru Krishnam namadhvam sada Krishnena kila shatravo vinihata Krishnaya tasmai namah Krishna deva samuthitam jagadidam Krishnasya dasosmyaham Krishne tishtiti vishvame tadakilam He Krishna rakshaswamam. May Krishna, the spiritual master of the 3 worlds, protect us. Continually bow down to Krishna. Krishna has killed all our enemies. Obeisance is to Krishna. From Krishna alone, this world has come into being. I am the servant of Krishna. This entire universe rests within Krishna. Oh Krishna, please protect me. So here, first of all, may Krishna protect us. So here, Krishna is the subject of the sentence. That is the first case. It's called nominative case. Jagat Traya Guru. He is the spiritual master of the 3 worlds. Krishnam namadhvam sada. All of you constantly bow down to Krishna. So now here, to Krishna. This is known as accusative case, second case. Then, Krishnena kila shatrava vinihata. All enemies have been killed by Krishna. By Krishna. Here Krishna is used in the instrumental case, third case. Krishnaya tasmai namaha. Obeisances unto him, unto Krishna. This is called the dative case. Obeisances are offered to please Krishna. Krishnat eva samuthitam jagadidam. This world has risen from Krishna alone, from Krishna. So this is the fifth case. Now, what is this called? Ablative case. Then, Krishnasya dasosmyaham. I am a servant of Krishna, of Krishna. This is called possessive case, genitive case. Krishne tishtati vishwametad akilam. This entire universe stands or is situated in Krishna, in Krishna. This is called accommodation. He accommodates this entire universe. This is the seventh case. Hey Krishna Rakshaswanam. Oh Krishna, please protect me. So here you're referring to Krishna. This is Sambodhana, the case of address. Call someone. So the point to note is the Supreme Absolute Truth is the ultimate dative cause. Dative cause means that everything exists for him, for his pleasure. Fourth case. He is the causative cause, which is the ablative cause. From him everything comes. He is the accommodating cause. Everything rests in him. Seventh case. All these causes cannot be attributed to an impersonal object. An impersonal entity cannot be related to this world in the fourth case, fifth case, and seventh case. Actually, Sri Vaishnava followers of Ramanujacharya, they point out that the relationship between this world and Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is set out in all the 7 cases in Bhagavad Gita. So that's a very clear presentation of personalism. The Vedas inform us that he alone became many, and when he so desires, he glances over material nature. Before he glanced over material nature, there was no... Oh, wait. Give me a minute, let me just turn this one off. Before he glanced over material nature, there was no material cosmic creation. Therefore, his glance is not material. Material mind or senses were unborn when the Lord glanced over material nature. Thus, evidence in the Vedas proves that beyond a doubt the Lord has transcendental eyes and a transcendental mind. So kamayata. He thought, let me become many. That means he has thinking ability. And so I then he glanced. So when he glances, then there is the glancer, the object of the glance also, the glanced. The glanced is Prakriti. And that Prakriti is going to manifest itself into Ahankara. Then Ahankara will further manifest into the Karmendriyas, Gyanendriyas, Manas. We know this from Bhagavatam and other places. So the Supreme Lord's thinking is not due to that Prakrita Manas, that material mind. They are not material. His impersonality, therefore, is a negation of his materiality, but not a denial of his transcendental personality. So it is a fact that in the Vedanta Sutra, the Supreme Lord has been his transcendental name, form, qualities, pastimes are not as distinctly presented like in Srimad Bhagavatam, but his materiality has been sufficiently negated in the Vedanta Sutra. There's no doubt about it. Brahman ultimately refers to the personality of Godhead. So even though we talk about Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, Brahman referring to the effulgence of the Lord, Paramatma referring to the aspect of the Lord who controls and maintains material existence, and Bhagavan as the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. Still, ultimately, Brahman and Paramatma directly refer to Bhagavan. And in the Vedanta Sutra, Brahman refers to the Supreme Being only, the Supreme Personality of God. Impersonal Brahman realization is just a negative conception of the mundane creations. Paramatma is a localized aspect of Brahman, in this sense, Bhagavan, within all kinds of material bodies. Ultimately, the Supreme Brahman realization is the realization of the personality of Godhead, according to all evidence of the revealed scriptures. He is the ultimate source of Vishnu Tattvas. The Puranas are also supplementary to the Vedas. The Vedic mantras are too difficult for an ordinary man. Women, Shudras, and the so-called twice-born higher castes are unable to penetrate into the sense of the Vedas. And thus the Mahabharata and the Puranas are made easy to explain the truths of the Vedas. In his prayers before the boy Sri Krishna, Brahma said that there is no limit to the fortune of the residents of Rajabhumi, headed by Sri Nanda Maharaj and Yashodamai, because the eternal absolute truth has become their intimate relative. So here you find Krishna is referred to as the eternal absolute truth in the Bhagavata Purana. Usually, the Shankara Sampradaya does not value the Puranas as much as the others. They think that the Puranas should not be taken too seriously. I myself, I met one Shankarite Pandit once. Of all places, I saw him in Sri Rangam. And he told me, we are not biased. We are all neutral. We are not sectarian because we follow the Upanishads. And we are neutral. We are only interested in the truth. Only the truth. The truth and nothing but the truth. Therefore, we stick to the Upanishads. So they don't give much importance to the Puranas. They think that the Puranas are very contradictory. They say different things. But actually, it is not the case. The Smriti Shastras, which explain the Shruti Shastras, if you say that it is confusing, it is as confusing as Shruti only, that's all. Strictly speaking, it is much more clear because at least it's presented in a particular manner. There are Sattvic Puranas, Rajasic Puranas, Tamasic Puranas, and so on. So that's a standard method by which you understand. Some neutral scholars have pointed out in India that even though Shankaracharya has a problem with Pancharatra scriptures, Pashupata texts, and so many other ancient writings, he does not have a problem with the Puranas. He has quoted the Puranas as standard authorities. So if you go by Shankara, actually, you'll have to accept the authority of the Puranas. Adi Shankara. The Vedic mantra maintains that the absolute truth has no legs and no hands and yet goes faster than all and accepts everything that is offered to him in devotion. The latter statements definitely suggest the personal features of the Lord, although his hands and legs are distinguished from mundane hands and legs or other senses. Brahman, therefore, is never impersonal. But when such mantras are indirectly interpreted, it is wrongly thought that the absolute truth is impersonal. The absolute truth personality of Godhead is full of all opulences, and therefore he has a transcendental form of full existence, knowledge, and bliss. How then can one establish that the absolute truth is impersonal? Brahman, being full of opulences, is understood to have manifold energies, and all these energies are classified under three headings under the authority of Vishnu Purana, which says that the transcendental energies of Lord Vishnu are primarily three. His spiritual energy and the energy of the living entities are classified as superior energy, whereas the material energy is an inferior one, which is sprouted out of ignorance. The energy of the living entities is technically called Kshetragya energy. This Kshetragya Shakti, although equal in quality with the Lord, becomes overpowered by material energy out of ignorance and thus suffers all sorts of material miseries. In other words, the living entities are located in the marginal energy between the superior spiritual and inferior material energies, and in proportion to the living being's contact with either the material or spiritual energies, the living entity is situated in proportionately higher and lower levels of existence. These are all quotations from Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Purana is sometimes quoted by the Shankarites because it has wordings that they like. The Lord is beyond the inferior and marginal energies, as above mentioned, and the spiritual energy is manifested in three different phases as eternal existence, eternal bliss, and eternal knowledge. This is also Vishnu Purana. As far as eternal existence is concerned, it is conducted by the Santini potency. Similarly, bliss and knowledge are conducted by the Hladini and Samvit potencies, respectively. As the Supreme Energetic Lord, He is the supreme controller of the spiritual, marginal, and material energies. And all these different types of energies are connected with the Lord in eternal devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is thus enjoying in its transcendental eternal form. Is it not astounding that one dares to call the Supreme Lord non-energetic? The Lord is the controller of all energies, and the living entities are parts and parcels of one of the energies. Therefore, there is a gulf of difference between the Lord and the living entities. How then can one say that the Lord and the living entities are one and the same? In the Bhagavad Gita also, the living entities are described as belonging to the superior energy of the Lord. According to the principles of intimate correlation between the energy and the energetic, both of them are non-different also. Therefore, the Lord and the living entities are non-different as the energy and the energetic. Shakti Shaktimator Abhedaha. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are all inferior energies of the Lord, but the living entities are different from all as superior energy. This is the version of Bhagavad Gita. One minute. Is it connected?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know. Okay. See, now I'm on Geo. Just activate your video. But the living entities are different from all as superior energy. This is the version of Bhagavad Gita 7.4 to 5. See here, this is a reference to Bhagavad Gita. Here, Krishna is referring to two types of Prakriti. One as inferior Prakriti, one as superior Prakriti. As interpreted by Shankara also. Prakriti. And Prakriti is interpreted by them also as energy. The transcendental form of the Lord, and the reason why he's quoting it is to show that it matches with the presentation of the Vishnu Purana. The transcendental form of the Lord is eternally existent and full of transcendental bliss. How then can such a form be a product of the material mode of goodness? Anyone, therefore, who does not believe in the form of the Lord is certainly a faithless demon, and as such is untouchable, and not to be seen persona non grata, fit to be punished by the Platonic king. This is Yamaraj, Adrishya, Asprishya, Yamadandya. These are all expressions that Lord Chaitanya uses. The Buddhists are called atheists because they have no respect for the Vedas. Nastika. The word astika is used in three different senses. The first sense is Paralokaha asti iti astika. An astika is one who believes in the afterlife, that after death also you survive. Then uh, that is the lowest sense of the word astika. Then there's a higher sense. Ishvaraha asti iti astika. One who says that there is a supreme God, there's one supreme God. That person is an astik. Then the highest sense is Vedanam Pramanyam asti iti astika. The Vedas are authoritative and spotless. It's astika in that sense. Astika is generally translated as theistic. The opposite of that is Nastika. And Nastika has a sense of atheist. That is why Prabhupada here he says the Buddhists are called atheists because they have no respect for the Vedas. But those who defy the Vedic conclusions, as above mentioned, under the pretense of being followers of the Vedas, are verily more dangerous than the Buddhists. Sri Vyasadeva very kindly compiled the Vedic knowledge in his Vedanta Sutra. But if one hears a commentation of the Mayavada school as represented by the Shankara Sampradaya, certainly he will be misled on the path of spiritual realization. The theory of emanations is the beginning subject of the Vedanta Sutra. The theory of emanations is the world has emanated from the Supreme Brahman. All the cosmic manifestations are emanations from the absolute personality of Godhead by his inconceivable different energies. The example of the touchstone is applicable to the theory of emanation. The touchstone can convert an unlimited quantity of iron into gold, and still the touchstone remains as it is. Similarly, the Supreme Lord can produce all manifested worlds by his inconceivable energies, and yet he is full and unchanged. He is Purna, complete, and although an unlimited number of Purnas emanate from him, he is still Purna. The theory of illusion of the Mayavada school is advocated on the ground that the theory of emanation will cause a transformation of the absolute truth. The theory of illusion is that Brahman himself became deluded. If that is the case, Vyasadeva is wrong. Then you will have to say that the Vedanta Sutra is wrong. To avoid this, they have skillfully brought in the theory of illusion. But the world so they bring in the idea that this world is actually an illusion. So why do you have to say that an illusory world emanated from a non-illusory Supreme Brahman? But the world or the cosmic creation is not false as maintained by the Mayavada school. But if you go back, then you will understand that the world is not an illusion in the first place. It is not an illusion as conceived by the Mayavadis. But the conception that the material body is a self is certainly wrong. Pranava, Om, or the Omkara in the Vedas is the primeval hymn. This transcendental sound is identical with the form of the Lord. All the Vedic hymns are based on this Pranava Omkara. Tattvamasi is but a side word in the Vedic literatures, and therefore this word cannot be the primeval hymn of the Vedas. But Shankaracharya has given more stress on the side word Tattvamasi than on the primeval principle Omkara. The word Tattvamasi has been explained very convincingly by the Vaishnava Acharyas. Very, very convincingly, with proper argumentation. They have pointed out what it actually means. Tat means that, Tvam means you, Asi means are, you are that. This is the meaning given by Shankaracharya. But it is not so easily worked out because this comes 9 times with 9 different explanations. And Madhvacharya points out that if you give this meaning, that you are God, you are the supreme being, you are the supreme Brahman, this interpretation does not match any of the 9 examples that come along with it. Because the examples all point out that you are not the supreme being. In fact, in the Madhva Sampradaya, they have given 19 explanations of Tattvamasi. 19. And all of them are very, very interesting. We thought that at some point we could work out a book called Tattvamasi itself. Very, very interesting. Vyasaditya comes up with that in Nyayamrita. Before that, Vishnudas Acharya had come up with that. Very convincingly presented. The Lord thus spoke on the Vedanta Sutra and defied all the propaganda of the Mayavada school. If you have anything, or does it go to nowhere? No, it goes to nowhere. But I think it comes in. In our teachings of Lord Chaitanya, we have more elaborately explained all these philosophical intricacies. Srimad Bhagavatam clarifies them all. The Bhattacharya tried to defend himself and his Mayavada school by jugglery of logic and grammar, but the Lord defeated him by his forceful arguments. He affirmed that we are all related with the personality of God eternally, and that devotional service is our eternal function in exchanging the dealings of our relations. The result of such exchanges is to attain prema, or love of Godhead. When love of Godhead is attained, love for all other beings automatically follows, because the Lord is the sum total of all living beings. The Lord said that, but for these 3 items, namely eternal relation with God, exchange of dealings with Him, and the attainment of love for Him, all that is instructed in the Vedas is superfluous and concocted. The Lord further added that the Mayavada philosophy taught by Sripad Shankaracharya is an imaginary explanation of the Vedas, but it had to be taught by him, Shankaracharya, because he was ordered to teach it by the personality of Godhead. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that the personality of Godhead ordered his Lordship Shiva to deviate the human race from him, the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead was to be so covered so that people would be encouraged to generate more and more population. His Lordship Shiva said to Devi, in the Kali Yuga, I shall preach the Mayavada philosophy, which is nothing but clouded Buddhism, in the garb of a Brahmana. After hearing all these speeches of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhattacharya was struck with wonder and awe and regarded him in dead silence. The Lord then encouraged him with assurance that there was no cause to wonder. I say that emphasis. Devotional service unto the personality of Godhead is the highest goal of human life. End of emphasis. He then quoted a shloka from Bhagavatam 1.7.10 and assured him that even the liberated souls who are absorbed in the spirit and spiritual realization also take to the devotional service of the Lord Hari, because the personality of Godhead has such transcendental qualities that he attracts the heart of the liberated soul too. This is the Atmarama verse. Then the Bhattacharya decided to listen to the explanation of the Atmarama shloka from the Bhagavatam, same 1.7.10. The Lord first of all asked Bhattacharya to explain it, and after that he would explain it. The Bhattacharya then explained the shloka in a scholarly way with special reference to logic. He explained the shloka in 9 different ways, chiefly based on logic because he was the most renowned scholar of logic of the time. The Lord, after hearing the Bhattacharya, thanked him for the scholarly presentation of the shloka. And then, at the request of the Bhattacharya, the Lord explained the shloka in 64 different ways without touching the 9 explanations given by the Bhattacharya. Thus, after hearing the explanation of the Aparama shloka from the Lord, the Bhattacharya was convinced that such a scholarly presentation is impossible for an earthly creature. The complete text of the explanation given by the Lord will form a booklet itself, and therefore we have presented it in a chapter in our teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Before this, Sri Gopinath Acharya. Oh, what is this? Why all the time this is happening? Right. There's a question here. Is touchstone available in material world or something like that? Yes, it is available amongst the celestial beings. It is a part of the material world. 1 minute. Okay. Before this, Sri Gopinath Acharya had tried to convince him of the divinity of the Lord, but at the time he could not so accept him. But the Bhattacharya was astounded by the Lord's exposition of the Vedanta Sutra and explanations of the Atmarama Shloka, and thus he began to think that he had committed a great offense at the lotus feet of the Lord by not recognizing him to be Krishna himself. He then surrendered unto him, repenting for his past dealings with him, and the Lord was kind enough to accept the Bhattacharya. Out of his causeless mercy, the Lord manifested before him first as 400 Narayana, and then again as 200 Lord Krishna with a flute in his hand. The Bhattacharya at once fell down at the lotus feet of the Lord and composed many suitable shlokas in praise of the Lord by his grace. He composed 100 shlokas in praise of the Lord. The Lord then embraced him, and out of transcendental ecstasy, the Bhattacharya lost consciousness of the physical state of life. Tears, trembling, throbbing of the heart, perspiration, emotional waves, dancing, singing, crying, and all the 8 symptoms of trance were manifested in the body of the Bhattacharya. Sri Gopinath Acharya became very glad and astonished by this marvelous conversation of his brother-in-law by the grace of the Lord. Out of the 100 celebrated shlokas composed by the Bhattacharya in praise of the Lord, the following 2 are most important. And these 2 shlokas explain the mission of the Lord in gist. 1. Let me surrender. 1 minute. One, let me surrender unto the personality of Godhead, who has appeared now as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the ocean of all mercy and has now come down to teach us material detachment, learning, and devotion service to himself. 2. Since pure devotion service of the Lord has been lost in the oblivion of time, the Lord has appeared to renovate the principles, and therefore I offer my obeisances unto his lotus feet. The Lord explained the word mukti to be equivalent to the word Vishnu, or the personality of Godhead. To attain mukti, or liberation from the bondage of material existence, is to attain the service of the Lord. So this is the ultimate meaning of moksha, mukti. And I have myself seen some scriptural statements to this effect, that attaining eternal service to Lord Vishnu is liberation. The Lord then proceeded towards South India for some time and converted all people on the way to become devotees of Lord Sri Krishna. Such devotees also converted many others to the cult of devotion service or to the Bhagavata Dharma of the Lord. And thus he reached the bank of the Godavari, where he met Srila Ramananda Rai, the governor of Madras on behalf of Maharaj Prataprudra, the king of Orissa. So Ramananda Rai was the governor as a representative of Maharaj Prataprudra. His talks with Ramananda Rai are very important for higher realization of transcendental knowledge, and the conversation itself forms a small booklet. We shall, however, give herewith a summary of the conversation. Sri Ramananda Rai was a self-realized soul, although outwardly he belonged to a caste lower than a Brahmana in social status. He was not in the renounced order of life, and besides that, he was a high government servant in the state. Still, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as a liberated soul on the strength of the high order of his realization of transcendental knowledge. Similarly, the Lord accepted Srila Haridas Thakur, a veteran devotee of the Lord, coming from a Mohammedan family. And there are many other great devotees of the Lord who came from different communities, sects, and castes. The Lord's only criterion was the standard of devotional service of the particular person. He was not concerned with the outward dress of a man. He was concerned only with the inner soul and its activities. Therefore, all the missionary activities of the Lord are to be understood to be on the spiritual plane. And as such, the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or the cult of Bhagavata Dharma has nothing to do with mundane affairs, sociology, politics, economic development, or any such sphere of life. Srimad Bhagavatam is the purely transcendental urge of the soul. When he met Sri Ramananda Rai on the bank of the Godavari, the Varnashrama Dharma followed by the Hindus was mentioned by the Lord. Srila Ramananda Rai said that by following the principles of Varnashrama Dharma, the system of 4 castes and 4 orders of human life, everyone could realize transcendence. In the opinion of the Lord, the system of Varnashrama Dharma is superficial only, and it has very little to do with the highest realization of spiritual values. The idea is karma can maximum lead to or freedom from lust, anger, and greed. Only this much. It cannot give you the highest perfection of life. It is just preliminary purification. That's all. The highest perfection of life is to get detached from the material attachment and proportionally realize the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The personality of God recognizes the living being who is progressing in that line. Devotional service, therefore, is the culmination of the culture of all knowledge. When Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared for the deliverance of all fallen souls, he advised the deliverance of all living entities as follows. The Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead. This is all paraphrasing Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter. From whom all living entities have emanated, must be worshipped by all their respective engagements. Swakarmana tamabhyachya siddhim vindati manavaha. Because everything that we see is also the expansion of his energy. That is the way of real perfection, and it is approved by all bona fide acharyas, past and present. The system of Varnashrama is more or less based on moral and ethical principles. There is very little realization of the transcendence as such, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected it as superficial and asked Ramananda Rai to go further into the matter. Now this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in one of his essays that this does not mean that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected the practical significance of Varnashrama Dharma, because he himself very meticulously carried out the rules of Sannyasa Ashrama as a sannyasi and the rules of the Grihastha Ashrama when he was a Grihastha. So he did accept Ashrama functioned as a Brahmana. So he accepted Varna Dharma also. His wife Lakshmi Priya Devi and later Vishnu Priya Devi, they accepted Stri Dharma, which is also part of this system, Varnashrama Dharma system. So everyone, the Lord and his associates, they practically or externally, they accepted the prescriptions, prohibitions and allowances of karma or varnashrama dharma. But when he says it's superficial, it means that they do not accept it as the means to attain the highest perfection of life. And asked Ramananda Rai to go further into the matter. The Ramananda Rai then suggested renunciation of fruitive actions unto the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita 9.27 advises in this connection. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, and whatever you give, as well as whatever you perform in penance, offer to me alone. This dedication on the part of the worker suggests that the personality of Godhead is a step higher than the impersonal conception of the Varnashrama system, but still the relation of the living being and the Lord is not distinct in that way. The Lord therefore rejected this proposition and asked Ramananda Rai to go further. Again, we should not misunderstand that this means that we should not offer whatever we eat unto the Lord. This is 9.27. We must do all these things, but it is not sufficient. There is more than this. We should do this and more. Rai then suggested renunciation of the Varnashrama Dharma and acceptance of devotion service. The Lord did not approve of this suggestion also, for the reason that all of a sudden one should not renounce his position, for that may not bring in the desired result. It was further suggested by Rai that attainment of spiritual realization, freed from the material conception of life, is the topmost achievement for a living being. God rejected this suggestion also because on the plea of such spiritual realization, much havoc has been brought about by unscrupulous persons. Therefore, all of a sudden, this is not possible. The Rai then suggested sincere association of self-realized souls. There's a question here. Okay, wait. Let me deal with the question first. These 8 symptoms we don't see in any devotee. Which are the 8 symptoms?
Ashtasiddhi Vikarpo.
Sorry?
That Ashtasiddhi Vikar.
Ashtasattvika Vikar. Ashtasattvika Vikar are decorations. They are not necessarily proof, because one can fake them. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that one can fake the Ashtasattvika Vikaras. The real proof of one having been in Bhava Bhakti are the 9 features of a Bhava Bhakta. Shantara Vyartha Kalakvam Viraktir Manashunyata. One becomes very detached, very tolerant. One does not waste time. Namagane Sadaruchi. One has a taste for singing and chanting Krishna's holy names all the time, like that. There are 9 features of a person who has attained Bhava Bhakti. Whereas these 8 Sattvika Vikaras, they are decorations actually. 8 Sattvika Vikaras we see in material life also. And people sometimes when they have lost their child and then they get the child back, they embrace the child and they're filled with tears. In India, it's very common that when a girl is married and she goes off to her husband's house, then the girl's parents all cry with Ganga and Yamuna flowing from their eyes. We see all these things. So this is not it's not Ashtasattvika Vikar itself by itself. And they may cry upon seeing the daughter going, and they go to the temple and they see the deities and they cry saying, I want my daughter, and then tears again flow from their eyes, and you cannot think that this is some big thing. So this is not proof. Proof is actually something else. The 8 features of a Bhava Bhakta, 8 unique distinguishing characteristics of a Bhava Bhakta. We generally don't see, yes, it's a fact because Bhava Bhakti is very rare. Yashadni Shubhada Moksha Laghuta Krit Sudurlabha is very, very rare. And generally, we will take a few lifetimes to come to that point. So, but if we do things properly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if we do things properly, Alpadine Bhavoday Hoy, within a few days one attains Bhava Bhakti. But we need to be something in order to execute Krishna consciousness of that nature. We need to execute Krishna consciousness with a certain intensity for that to happen. If we have desires for liberation or subtle or gross material happiness, then it gets delayed. The delay is because of our own additional desires. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was asked, some of the members of the Gaudiya Math, they don't seem to be making much progress even after years of strict spiritual practice. They're asked in Mayapur actually. And then he said, this is because they are having forbidden desires or they are engaged in forbidden activities in secret. So therefore, the effect is not manifest. And he gave this example. He said, just like if you have worms in the stomach, even if you eat good food, the nourishment does not come to the body because the worms are eating it. You are not eating it. So it goes away elsewhere. Okay, we'll go back to this. The Rai then suggested The Rai then suggested sincere association of self-realized souls and hearing submissively the transcendental message of the pastimes of the personality of Godhead. This suggestion was welcomed by the Lord. So here it is said, you stay in your position and you become fixed in Shravanam, Kirtanam, which is an indication that you should be fixed in the 9 types of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasim, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. Of course, we should give up adharma. Adharma has no place in Krishna consciousness. We give up adharma. But whatever complicated situation we may be in, we should engage increasingly in these activities in the association of like-minded devotees and under the guidance of more advanced devotees. Primarily Shravanam Kirtanam. This suggestion was welcomed by the Lord. This suggestion was made following in the footsteps of Brahmaji, who said that the personality of Godhead is known as Ajita, or the one who cannot be conquered or approached by anyone. But such Ajita also becomes Jitta, which means conquered, by one method, which is very simple and easy. The simple method is that one has to give up the arrogant attitude of declaring oneself to be God himself. One must be very meek and submissive and try to live peacefully by lending the ear to the speeches of the transcendently self-realized soul who speaks on the message of Bhagavata Dharma or the religion of glorifying the Supreme Lord and his devotees. To glorify a great man is a natural instinct for living beings, but they have not learned to glorify the Lord. Perfection of life is attained simply by glorifying the Lord in association with the self-realized devotee of the Lord. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been formed for this purpose. We are supposed to be absorbed in Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavad, Shravan, Mathurava, Shrimurti, Shraddha. That Sadhu Sangha itself means to submissively associate with more advanced devotees. The self-realized devotee is he who surrenders unto the Lord fully and who does not have attachment for material prosperity. Material prosperity and sense enjoyment and their advancement are all activities of ignorance in human society. Peace and friendship are impossible for a society detached from the association of God and his devotees. It is imperative, therefore, that one sincerely seek the association of pure devotees and hear them patiently and submissively from any position of life. The position of a person in the higher or lower stages of life does not hamper one in the path of self-realization. Prabhupada has given this example. If you are traveling in a train, in India we have general compartment and we have second class compartment, AC compartments and so on. But if everyone gets into the same train, they go into their respective compartments, then they are all going to reach the same destination at the same time. Just that if I have a general compartment ticket, I should not go into second class compartment. That's all. I should just stick to my place. But if I execute, but if I get into the same train, I reach the destination at the same time. Therefore, Prabhupada writes here, the position of a person in the higher or lower status of life does not hamper one in the path of self-realization. The only thing one has to do is to hear from a self-realized soul with a routine program. The teacher may also deliver lectures from the Vedic literatures, following in the footsteps of the bygone acharyas, who realized the absolute truth. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended the simple method of self-realization, generally known as Bhagavata Dharma. Srimad Bhagavatam is the perfect guide for this purpose. Okay. That is today's quota. Okay. Any further? That looks like there is something in the chat. How do you describe adharma? Veda pranito dharma, yadharma sadviparyaya, Vedo Narayana Sakshat Swayambhu Riti Shushuma. Seeing is believing. Yamadutas are asking the Yamadutas, you must explain to us the meaning of religious principles and the symptoms of irreligion. And the Yamadutas replied, Veda pranito dharmo yadharmas tadviparyaya Vedo Narayana Sakshat Swayambhu Riti Shushuma. The order carriers of Yamaraj said, religious principles are indeed that which are prescribed by the four Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. The religious principles are the opposite of that, that which is not supported by the Vedic injunctions. The Vedas, books of knowledge, are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being the words of Narayan. They are self-born and self-sufficient, appearing only from the breath of Narayan, and not being learned from anyone else. We have thus heard. The Yamadutas replied, that which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is irreligion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and are self-born. This we have heard from Yamaraj. So this is adharma. Dharma, adharma. That's all. Okay? So we'll stop with this. Ansha kalpatarubhya shri kripasinduਭ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah. Who is asking?
Prabhu,
Somebody raise hand. Whoever is asking. There is a button for raise hand. Oh no, I myself raise hand. Okay. Yes. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I'm sorry, I just forgot the. I'll put in the.
You can ask in the Telegram group. But I thought in Telegram some other question was asked. Wait.
We should make a group dedicatedly for the questions.
Make a group for question answers only.
Yeah.
Apart from Diksha Guru, do the other Guru, Shiksha Guru, Vartam Prashad Guru also accept one's previous sins? I'll just show you something which needs to be studied further.
Okay.
Here is something about Shiksha Guru. Shiksha Guru hai जीवे साक्षात नाही ताते गुरु चैत्य रूपे शिक्षा गुरु hai Krishna Mahanta Swarupe. Krishna himself appears as the Shiksha Guru, as a Mahanta, as a great devotee. Lord Krishna sends an instructing spiritual master to show him favor and invoke his dormant propensity for serving the Supreme. This is Bhagavatam verse 11.26.26. Tato dusangam utsrijya satsu sajjeta buddhiman santaha eva asya chindanti manah vyasangam uttibhumi. One should therefore avoid bad company and associate only with devotees. With their realized instructions, such saints can cut the knot connecting one with activities unfavorable to devotion service. Now, does this indicate that this knot in the heart is often connected to one's karmic reactions? This needs to be analyzed further. This needs to be analyzed with that first canto, second chapter series. There's a series of verses. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshaya. That needs to be analyzed because this is happening through a Shiksha Guru. So, do they take the karmic reactions? In general, in India, it is understood that a guru means a teacher or somebody who guides you, who talks to you, who gives you knowledge. Jnana pradaha, the person who gives you knowledge, that person is called a guru. So, it appears to be so. It appears to be so. But at the time of initiation, when one accepts a disciple, then definitely there is, by accepting itself, there is a transfer of karmic reactions. Yeah. But for preaching, we have to accept many disciples for expanding preaching, even if we suffer. Generally, the Shiksha gurus don't seem to take responsibility for their dependents. So it is not clear to what degree he has been accepted as a guru also. That is also okay. We'll stop with that.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
Prabhu, in the introduction where Lord Buddha is mentioned, it is said that Lord instructed him that you deviate the people so that they will increase the population. Why
Yes.
such a reason is there? I could not understand what it means by increase the population and why
They will
population.
continue in material, so that they'll continue in material existence. That's what it means.
But why Krishna wants that?
This world is the prison house. Prison house is meant to be populated with criminals, of course.
But Lord Buddha did not preach anything which is
Where does Lord
diminishing.
Buddha? No, where is it? He did not preach Buddhism to increase the population. That is for Mayavad. You should spread Mayavad so that Mayavad. That is different. This is different. You are mixing up.
No, Lord Shiva was told that you preach Mayavad so that population will increase.
Correct.
I am unable to understand this. How by preaching Mayavad he is increasing population?
No, by preaching Mayavada, you make people more and more demoniac. And these demoniac fellows, they are not going to attain liberation or anything. They will continue in material existence. And in that way, the tamasic population will increase. That's all.
Okay. Okay, bro.
Comes here. The exact statement is this. स्वागमय कल्पितैस्त्वं च जनान् मद्मुखान् कुरु मां च गोपय येन स्यात् सृष्टिरेषो येषोत्तरोत्तरा, by which there may be more and more material advancement. Cover me in such a way that people will take more interest in advancing material civilization just to propagate a population bereft of spiritual knowledge. So that's what it means. Abhinav Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. And can we say that if we preach Vaishnavism, then Vaishnavas, they are not interested in procreating children, and there will be a lot of renunciants. So if Vaishnavism will be preached, so very less children will be because of that. Would that be the reason?
Possible. That is an idealistic utopian fantasy. But generally, because people start from Tamoguna. They start from Tamoguna, go through Rajoguna, then come to Satoguna, then they come to transcendence. But this is something else. Here, people just stuck in material existence. They're just stuck. So they're increasing the population with just nothing. It's just they're stuck meaninglessly. These other souls, they're all progressing higher. They're going up. Now, I don't know whether all of this indicates that in Satya Yuga the population was very less. I don't know all these things. Could be. Having children and training them in Krishna Bhakti is one of the means of propagating Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. So just to have children by itself is not necessarily something wrong. But we are talking of sort of materialistic population here. very crazy, nonsensical population. There is some definite relationship between Mayavada and sinful activities. Mayavada is tamasic, it's just tamasic misinterpretation of scripture. There's a book called Mani Manjari, which was written by the biographer of Madhvacharya, based on information from Madhvacharya, on the events that took place before Madhvacharya appeared. And it does not present Shankaracharya's followers in a nice way. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur translated it into Bengali and published it. Small little booklet. Okay, let's stop with that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.